So, I've been checking this petition website a little bit since it reopened at the start of this month. Reopened, I think it was actually around Halloween when it reopened, right? And I think, I'm not entirely certain, but I think they started all the new petitions off at 7. Just a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically 6 digits, but starting with a 7. So I don't know whether we call that 700,000 or what, but I think that they started off with a round number. I'm not entirely sure, but it's looking like it was 7 and then 6 zeros. And the last time, it doesn't seem like today, which is a Monday, that there was that many new published since the day before. And there wasn't that many on the rejected either, petitions list. But the first one that I submitted, right, was 700493. So there was, when I first submitted the petition, like about 3 days after it had reopened, they'd already had 493. So there was 493 petitions being submitted since it reopened. So that probably works out at about over 100 a day. 493 divided by 3 is at least 100 and... So, I mean, probably even, it might be even 1, 2, 3, 4, 50. Yeah, so over 150 a day. And I know that the person was obsessed with that website who's got the Facebook page for petitioning Parliament. He's obsessed with the EU. All he does is petition to get back into the EU all the time. And he must have been waiting for that petitions website to reopen and checking it every day, if not reloading the page like every single day, waiting for it to reopen. He probably was following the Twitter page as well, but I didn't actually know they had a Twitter. I forgot about that. Anyway, so, but the point is this, right? I did some maths. I was looking at the petition numbers which had been allocated to the petitions, and because mine was 700,493, so as they were like checking them and then publishing them or rejecting them, they either publish it or they reject it. I was looking at all the numbers of the petitions which have been published, and I was writing down some of the numbers like 700266 or 700304, right? And also the rejected one. When I actually checked up to 427, right? And mine has actually now been rejected, but I never got an email to say it had been rejected. You're meant to get an email saying that your petition has been rejected, right? If it's been rejected, but I never got that email. And I looked on the first I looked at the rejected list of petitions, and I was looking through them all to see if my petition had actually appeared yet. I looked through all the published ones, and then I looked through all the rejected ones, and then I noticed it was there. I'm like, oh, look, it's there in the rejected ones. And to be honest, I was actually amazed that they'd even put it in the rejected ones, because I got a feeling that they wouldn't publish it, just because they're awkward, like make up some excuse. I was just thinking, what excuse are they going to come up with this time, right? That's what I was thinking the whole time. What I was thinking is, like, I've spent absolutely ages, like, preparing this petition to make sure that I get everything in it and all the words right, that it has to fit into the limitations, right? And then it took me ages to get the 5 signatures, which was a pain, right? And I waited 15 days, right, to get this petition, see what happens if I can get it published. And I'm like, all right, then what's the excuse going to be this time? They're going to say, oh, we don't understand what you're asking, or it's not something we can do, or it doesn't meet our standards. They got all these, like, fake excuses, right? And actually, right, actually, I thought that they might not even publish it to the rejected list because, to be honest, what they're doing now is they've got this policy rule saying that if they don't publish it and it doesn't meet the standards, then they might not even publish it on the rejected list. So, like, no one even knew that it existed. No one even knew that you even submitted it, right? So that, like, effectively, it's like they don't even want anyone to know that, like, anyone even submitted that petition or that it even existed, right? Just like, it's not even, they're not even going to give you the grace of having it appear that they turned it down and have to even give a reason why they turned it down. They just don't want anyone to know that it existed. And I'm starting to think that that's kind of like the attitude of, like, the burning down of Parliament. I'm like, okay, so in 1834, Parliament burned down, and then literally, supposedly, everything was destroyed, all the records. Well, obviously not Hansard, not everything was destroyed. I won't even know what the law is. They'd have to, like, make the law again. Maybe they did that. Maybe like everything was destroyed, and they just, like, decided that we're just going to change all the laws in history. But I don't know. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure why everything didn't burn down. But we lost all the petitions, the House of Commons petitions, except the ones that appeared in this. Miraculously, all of the session books weren't burned. I think at that point, quite a lot of stuff might have been published, because they're publishing them in the printing press, so quite a lot of stuff was published, Acts of Law in Parliament. But, I mean, they could, at that point, they could have just, we don't know, they could have just completely and totally rewritten history and made it all up again. I don't know. But, maybe not everything was kept in Parliament or in the building. I don't know exactly what happened, but it's all of the House of Commons petitions that didn't actually get read out in Parliament in Hansard have been destroyed. And effectively, after that day, they started throwing them all away. Any that didn't get read out in Parliament and put in Hansard were destroyed from that day onwards after the fire, up till 1947, so they're claiming, and then they started saving them again. So we don't get anything from history, although apparently there is some microfilm going around somewhere that's got some data from them on, which you can get hold of if you look for it. I probably will look for that at some point when I've got time, right? Now, the thing is, that attitude, though, is kind of what they're doing now. They're saying that, if we don't want to run it, if we don't publish it, right, even to let you even try to get it debated, right, then, or even if it's not even worthy of being rejected and not even worthy of giving a reason why they rejected it, then it's poof. So they might as well just burn them all. They might as well like have at the end of the year, like, just burn all the petitions that weren't even worthy of being rejected or even given notice of. It's the same attitude. That's the attitude, right? Even though the Parliamentary Papers Act protects anyone from suing Parliament for defamation or any ill effects from any documents that it officially publishes, but Parliament itself doesn't want to be defamed or doesn't want to look bad or whatever. They're not even using that Parliamentary Privileges Act to its full effect. What's the point in having an act which stops anyone suing Parliament, right, for anything that it says or does? Like if someone says, I don't know, like, Simon Cowell's gay or something like that or whatever, right? Or whatever other joke you want to come out with. What's the point in having a law protecting you from, publishing or saying what you want without being prosecuted if you don't say what you want without being prosecuted. I mean, what's the point? You know, also like Parliament now doesn't want to look bad, but I mean, it always looks bad when there's people, you know, walking around outside it with signs saying, you know, Starmer is a traitor or whatever, or Starmer, you know, is committing treason or whatever is the latest complaint or grievance that they've got. Parliament is always looking bad. They've got protesters outside complaining. I mean, how can Parliament not, you know, with all the complaints that it gets anyway, it's almost kind of like a TV show, you know, just smile. They only want to show like the, you know, always look on the bright side of life. I mean, that's what got the world into this mess of all this junk food and pretending everything's okay when it's not. So they could kind of like do this whole game show TV style thing where the world's okay, and then on TV they've got all these little programs where they kind of like, you know, do a little cheeky tune in the background, like do kind of like naughtiness. It's kind of like they're trying to make, when anything in life is bad or someone steals something or something goes wrong, they play this little, BBC have got this little tune. It's kind of like it's a little cheeky tune, like, it's just a sneaky cheeky tune, which kind of encourages it. I think it actually encourages mischief, you know, and probably that's why the crime levels are through the roof, you know, I won't be surprised. But, you know, you can't, and this is why there's a dilemma now with government. They've hidden the dark side of reality, the dark side of the moon, for so long from normal mainstream TV, although you've got all these programmes. It's either all pretend and fake smiles and everything's okay, or it's kind of like the dark side can only be allowed in fiction. So they've got all these murders and all of the like murders and the deaths and the horror is only in the fiction. So they let it in the movies, and they let the horror in a drama, and they let the horror in, like, you know, Friday the 13th or in a big movie. But apparently on normal TV, like game shows and, you know, Jeremy Vine and, you know, X Factor and all these other programmes, you know, it's all positive, you know, or you're not allowed on, or you get kicked off or whatever, you know, and it's not so everything that's the dark side can only be allowed through fiction. So what he's trying to make out, really, the juxtaposition of it is that all that dark side is fiction, you know, when actually the reality of it is it's very real, and that's why people are depressed and why there's crime, but yet, you know, and it comes out in the news as all these, you know, the news actually dramatise it. You should open the newspaper and then everything should tell you what's happened in small print, in equal. There shouldn't be like a cover story. But what they do is they dramatise it and make it, and all the things that are bad are just, there are loads of things happen bad all the time. But what they do is they draw them out into these huge, dramatise it like they do on the movies and TV, right? But when it comes to normal telly, like, you know, calendar, the news at 10, I mean, not news at 10 for, like, you know, things that have gone wrong, but I mean, like, you know, calendar or, you know, morning TV or whatever, it's kind of like, they separate it, it's like either all good, right, and or all completely, you know, over-dramatised bad stuff. So, in fact, what it does is it turns the bad things into life. When it covers, all the movies are like a fake and pretend, and when I said that, okay, they do some bad things in real life, but it's in the news, well, what it does is, rather than it just being a normal occurrence that happens with everything else, right, they turn it over-dramatise it into like that Southport thing or whatever, they make into these kind of like they just kind of like over publicise and play it. And I think that's the thing. And then I think trying to get back to the point with this whole video is that Parliament, they don't really want, they're trying to, they want to try and keep this clean image, but the government have never had a clean image. Doesn't exist. I mean, look at history. History happened. The Civil War. James II, being turfed out and chucking the seal in the river, or and William the Orange invading, William the Conqueror. There's no such thing as bright and normal. So I don't know who they're conning or who they're tricking to reject these petitions. The whole point in a petition is meant to be that there is some grievance or wrongdoing, or somebody's had something done wrong to them, or something's not right with the country and it needs to be put correct. Because people are suffering from it, whether it's taxes or a law being too, unjust or whatever. And now all of those petitions actually existed, and it's a legitimate thing to petition the government over. And now they've kind of like shed all that. So now it's only about making or changing laws effectively. But it's not just meant to be about that. It's meant to be about all kinds of different, particularly grievances, begrudgances against the government, Anyway, so yeah, the rejecting, how I got onto that massive tangent was through all the petitions that they're rejecting, and there's not even any existence of them. So what I did was, getting back to the point, 17 minutes later, I started looking at all the numbers, and I looked up to what the latest one was that they approved. And the latest, and when they'd approved number 700,427, at that point, I'm like, well, there's been 427, there has to have been at least 427 submitted at that point. So what I did is, when there were 400, when I noticed that one of the newest ones that had been published at the time, which was a couple of days ago, at 427, I counted how many petitions were actually published at that point and how many had been rejected. And if you counted all the ones that had been rejected, right, I think it was like 66 petitions had been rejected at that point. And I think there was 50. There was how many were published? There were 63. There were 63 published and 30 rejected at that point, right? So if the 63 published and 30 rejected, that means, right, that there were 353 completely unaccounted for. That means there were 353 petitions that didn't even appear on the rejected list. So they weren't published, but they weren't even appearing on the rejected list. 353. Were they really that bad? Were they really swearing or effing and blinding or, calling Keir Starmer names or really asking for things that the government couldn't do, or really ridiculous things that like the Monster Raven Looney Party have got in the manifesto, or really that questionable? 353. Now, there is a possibility that there was 353 that people hadn't yet managed to get the 5 signatures for, because it's hard to get those 5 signatures, I think, even if you've got friends and even if you're in big Facebook groups, just because it is. and people usually can't be asked, or the people who can be asked are the people that you usually ask when you do it, and they get sick of you asking them, right? Unless you're like one of these women, like in one of these champion campaign groups who literally does everything that you say, like little dogs, like stand, sit, lay down, roll over, like women who have got, command of, 100,000 people in Facebook groups, and, if they say, donate to someone's got cancer charity, then everyone donates, £10 to it. Or if they say, stand, everyone turn up at, like Extinction Rebellion, everyone turn up at Parliament on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and like everyone turns up. Those sort of people, right? Those sort of people, they don't have any problem getting the 5 signatures, because, if they say, sneeze, everyone will fucking sneeze, right? But the things that they ask for, usually, it doesn't necessarily get them anywhere, because look at the Wales petition, 500,000 people nearly signed that, not far off, and they're still having trouble with it, with the government, So, and actually, all of the Euless petitions added together add up to about 500,000 signatures. In fact, the petitioners committee have just debating one, right? That I think only got 53,000 signatures. They didn't even get the 100,000, which they said you need to get, and they're debating it now. And is that unfair when they've issued a statement to say that you've got to get 100,000 to debate it? Anyway, so what I was thinking is that if the petitions committee is only just reopened, what I thought is this: if you've been waiting for it to reopen, or if it has only just reopened, it's quite a big deal, right? Because it's been, the government started quite a while ago, right? So what I thought is, all of the people who have submitted petitions, right, they must have been either waiting or they must be quite keen, right? They're not like people who would just like write it and submit it and then like not bother to collect the 5 signatures. Some people will not bother or find it hard, but I thought because it's only just opened, I thought people would be probably a little bit more keener than usual. Saying that, I've submitted probably about 2 other petitions which I probably aren't going to bother collecting the signatures, because I realised that I might have made a mistake or error on them, right? But I don't think that 553 people did make an error. I think that it's more likely that 353 people have probably got the 5 signatures, and they might be the amount that they're just. I think that they're just not going to publish them, right? Because for whatever reasons, just for whatever reasons, there's a very, very small number of rejected petitions. I don't think 553 people would have abandoned them. So it's interesting figures. It's quite it's a very high rate of rejection, don't you think? To say that if there were 427 petitions submitted, right, and out of 427, only 63 have been published at that point, and that's the number they've got through checking all of the 427, and only 30 they wanted to actually officially admit that they're rejected, that exist. So I don't think that all that number of people actually have not bothered to get the 5 signatures, or like made a typo, or decided that they don't want to do it anymore. I think that what it reflects is, and these are all people who, everyone has been to school. We're not in the 1600s where people aren't taught to read and write. They can't write for themselves. They need a lawyer to write. A lot of people have been to school. They're educated in the English language. They can write for themselves. And then they're not that stupid, right? So it makes you wonder, what's going on here with this petitions committee? Because